the Texas Mortgage Bankers Association's education webinar series brought to you by the Education and Endowment Committee, led this year by co-chairs Hannah Barton and me, Stephen Bertrand. I'm excited to facilitate today's webinar titled, What the Uncommon Have in Common. We encourage you to participate in today's session. Feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar using the Teams Q&A feature, and we'll do our best to address them during the presentation or the Q&A session at the end. Now I'm pleased to introduce our speaker, Phil Treadwell. Phil Treadwell is an award-winning entrepreneur, national speaker, and podcaster with nearly 20 years as a top performer in the mortgage and real estate industry. He's built teams in markets throughout the U.S. and regularly collaborates with industry thought leaders. He is a founder and mindset coach at M1 Academy and host of the Mortgage Marketing Expert podcast. He has received numerous recognitions, including Top Founders to Follow by USA Today, Top Mortgage Coaching Programs by Shape Software, 40 Most Influential Under 40 by NMP Magazine, and Top 20 Mortgage Professionals by Yahoo Finance. We're thrilled to have Phil with us today to share his insights. Let's get started. Phil, the presentation is all yours.
Stephen, Carol, everybody on the call, thank you guys so much for having me. Love TMBA, the organization. I had the opportunity to spend some time, speaking at TMBA Annual as well as a lot of the local Mortgage Bankers Association communities throughout Texas. And I just appreciate you guys having me here. I want to spend a little bit of time today to talk about things that are actually going to help you move the needle in your business. It's the end of the year. We're spending a lot of time talking about business planning, goal setting, reflecting on the successes we had for the year, ways that we could potentially improve, as well as looking into what is 2025 going to look like. And I like to share with people, Stephen, thank you so much for that incredible intro. It's always kind of surreal to hear some of the things that I've had the opportunity to be a part of, but I like to go back even further. I've been in the mortgage business almost 21 years, and I got into the mortgage business through a newspaper ad. Now, we all have an interesting story about how we got into the mortgage business, because I don't think a lot of people were raising their hand in kindergarten and say, I want to be a mortgage banker, I want to be an originator in the mortgage business whenever I grow up. We all have an interesting way of how we got here. Well, mine, if you rewind many, many years, my dad was a builder and my mom was a teacher, and I really thought I was going to take over my dad's company. And he said, you need to think long and hard before you want to do this for 40 or 50 years. I want you to see what else is out there. And so at the time, you looked in the newspaper to find jobs, and I found an ad. They were looking for someone with sales and management experience. And I, in college, had been a store manager for Blockbuster Video, if anybody remembers the old Blockbuster days. And I had some management experience. I also had some sales experience. And this company turned out to be a mortgage company. A 30-minute interview turned into about a 3-hour conversation. I'll never forget, the guy at the time said, if you decide to get in this business, you'll look back at this conversation one day and cuss me, because once you get in the mortgage business, it's really tough to get out of it. And I like to share that anecdotally because I think a lot of us can relate to that. And this is an industry that has a lot of opportunities. And so it's important to remember how and why we got in, the things that we like about this industry, because let's be honest, it's been tough for the last couple of years, and really reflect on what has been successes for us in the past. What are principles that we can apply and make more relevant today? Now, that first week at the mortgage company, I did 4 days of classroom style training, and I learned all about putting a good file together and the different loan programs. If you think about the early 2000s, it was a lot of subprime deals, a lot of throw mud up against the wall and see what sticks. And I was very fortunate to have really good coaches and mentors that really taught me the business. Well, on that 5th day, after those kind of 4 days of classroom style training, one-on-one, mind you, with the GM at the time, I followed him around to his referral partners. He called it his milk route, where he went to all these real estate offices and handed out flyers. Well, the next Monday, the start of week 2, was really excited. Okay, what do they got in store for me? He's standing next to a copier. If you think of those big fridge-sized monstrosities we used to have, and he was making black and white photocopies. Well, he took the copies that were on there and put those big black binder clips on the top of it like we used to have for files. And then he laid it in this banker's box, those Xerox paper boxes. And he took letterhead. Now, this story may date me a little bit. He took letterhead and he whited out the phone number and the fax number of the office at the bottom, cut out one of his flyers and scotch taped it to the letterhead and put it back on the copier and made 100 more copies. You could actually see the scotch tape that was taped in these flyers. And he did this over and over and over. Didn't really say much to me. Hands me this big box and said, okay, go talk to realtors and tell them to send you business. I looked at him like, wait a minute. Like you did this really formal classroom style training and now you're just throwing me to the wolves. Like what's happening here? And he said, oh, by the way, I had a goatee at the time. He said, keep the hair on your face and wear a tie. It'll make you look older so that people take you seriously. It wasn't in case they don't. The understanding was that people were not going to take me seriously as an early 20s going out there trying to get people home loans. Well, fast forward, and that first year, I did about 56 loans my first 12 months in the business. And I think 2 of them were over $100,000. Most of them were FHA manual underwrites. And if you think about the old down payment assistance programs we had back in the day, that was really my unique value, my competitive advantage against a lot of the other lenders out there that were doing these really high interest rate 80-20 loans. I was putting people into a down payment assistance FHA loan. And I share all this, and at times I'll kind of share the story. It took me 2.5 weeks of walking around 9-10 hours a day, handing out photocopied flyers before I had my first real conversation with a realtor. And I MapQuested from my apartment to these real estate offices. And most days I was hitting the same offices in the morning as I was in the afternoon. And I like to share this with people because we may talk about some new technologies. We may talk about social media or AI or different ways of becoming relevant in your business, but that's not where I came from. And that may not be where you came from in this business either. So it's about looking forward and taking what are those long-standing success principles, and like I said earlier, applying them to a more relevant world, the world that we're in right now. And so the title of this talk is What the Uncommon Have in Common. It's a title of a book that I'm finishing about elite performers, top producers, people in and out of the mortgage real estate business, people that have different types of businesses all over the country. What are the things they have in common? What is the mindset? What are the tactics? What are the habits that elite people, uncommon people have in common? Now, I've learned these. Obviously, I have a coaching company called M1 Academy where I have group and one-on-one coaching, but I've had just about every position you can have in sales and sales leadership in a mortgage company as a branch manager, area manager, regional, national director. So I've been able to learn from top producers. Now, I also have a podcast, as Stephen mentioned, called Mortgage Marketing Expert. And I started this podcast about 6.5 years ago. And as you can see from the screen, there's a lot of names that you'll probably recognize in and out of the mortgage business. So these aren't just things that I coach on or teach or have learned in my own life. These are things that some of the most successful people in business across the country also adopt. So that's where a lot of this came from. And so I like to throw that out there. It's not a shameless plug. There's a lot of value that we have in the podcast from all kinds of episodes, even years ago, that you can use and apply to your business, because that's what this is all about. It's an education place for you to come and get knowledge that you can use as you plan out your business or that you can go apply today. And this is where some of these things came from. So what we're going to be talking about is what are those things that uncommon people have in common? And one of the first things is they understand what's happening in the market. In any market, they understand what's really happening. And the thing that I can tell you is uncommon people recognize that there are opportunities in every single market. It doesn't matter what's happening. We just came out of an election. We were going to have a new president either way. A lot of people were pausing and saying, I don't wait and see what happens after the election. Well, let's be honest, regardless of who is elected president, not a lot gets changed right away. Now, the markets may react on, emotion or human behavior more so than market fundamentals. But if the economy over the next year or two is great, well, then awesome. People have more money to invest in real estate. And if the economy isn't so good, well, then that's typically favorable for mortgage interest rates, and people are able to buy homes and invest in real estate. So we've got to realize first and foremost, there's opportunities in every market, and we need to be educating our clients and our partners about what those opportunities are. Now, I used to have a ton of charts and graphs that I would share some of these things, and I've really narrowed it down to one of the ones that's most important. And I got this chart from Barry Habib and Dan Habib. And what this chart is it's homes built in the United States, new construction by decade. And as you can see, from 2010 to 2019, there were only 5.8 million new homes built in the United States. 5.8 million. Now that's significant because each of the 10 6-year time periods prior to that, there were between 20 and 27 million new homes built in the United States. 5.8 is the lowest number of new homes built since the Great Depression. Excuse me. We all know why. We were coming out of the financial crisis and the Great Recession. It was very difficult for new homes to be built. And supply has changed since the 5 years from 2019. We have increased supply. But when you pair this with the fact that there's between 50 and 60 million millennials in the United States, only 50% of millennials between the ages of 27 and 42, only half of them own a home. So you've got between 25 and 30 million people that want to enter the home buying market, that want to become homeowners, not counting other generations that are also wanting to purchase homes. Now, this is just new construction, but what we see with this is we have one of the largest groups of potential home buyers, but we have one of the smallest percentages of supply to service those home buyers. This is why there's not a housing bubble. This is why you're not going to have this massive decrease in home prices across the country. People are waiting for prices to reset. It's probably not going to happen. Now, you may have adjustments in local markets, but by and large, we're going to see appreciation in home prices. So when a buyer's like, oh, I want to see what happens with rates, see if rates come down. Well, the challenge with that is if rates come down significantly, you have a ton more people that are going to enter the home buying market that's going to put a larger demands on what is a limited percentage of supply. Those home prices increase and they may be able to buy a home at a lower interest rate, but their overall payment may be higher because the home was that much more expensive. So this is things we need to educate our buyers about. There is not a housing bubble. We are not going to see a significant decline in home prices because of simple supply and demand. Even if 10% of those millennials are precluded from buying a home because of, qualifying reasons or whatever, you still have between 20 and 25 million millennials that want to enter the home buying space. So these are things that we have to keep in mind when we're talking about the market, when we're talking about opportunities. Consumer debt has increased massively. The average interest rate on that consumer debt is really, really high. There may be people that aren't interested in moving, but are sitting on a low interest rate in their home that are able to consolidate that consumer debt with some of their equity and have a combined interest rate, that blended rate, much lower and save thousands of dollars in cash flow. These are the types of things that uncommon people understand is regardless of the market, where do we find opportunities? Where do we articulate these opportunities to our clients, to our partners, and go out and create business? Because people out there right now are crushing it like never before, even though we have a lot of people that are saying, hey, it's really challenging right now. And that may be you. So the first thing you have to think about is where are the opportunities? You can also think about one more little tip in here. In 2020, what it cost you to purchase a home, which was much lower, and what the interest rates were much lower. If you were going to buy an investment property, the margin between what your payment is and what you can rent it for is cash flow. Even though home prices and interest rates are much higher than they were in 2020, the margin is more. The cash flow is more. If you're investing in real estate, all you care about is that cash flow. How much can you make on that? And the reason that it's higher than it was in 2020 is rents have outpaced home prices. The average age of a first-time home buyer right now is 37 years old because it's between interest rates and home prices, it's keeping people at bay a little bit longer than they have in past, and it's putting a lot of pressure on the rental market. So again, these are things that we have to be mindful of. The second thing that uncommon people understand that we're going to talk about in this presentation anyway, is they know what business they're in. And a spoiler alert, we're not just in the mortgage and real estate business. There's much more to it than that. So what you have to realize is let's think about McDonald's, the Golden Arches. Everybody knows McDonald's. When I'm in a live presentation, I'll have it shouted out. And if you want to throw it in the chat, you absolutely can. But think about what business we think McDonald's is in. Now, a lot of people say real estate, and that's accurate. A lot of people say fast food or convenience. right? All of those are right answers. But the business McDonald's is really in is the happiness business. That's right, the happiness business. Their number one best-selling meal is a Happy Meal. They have a Happy Meal because when the kids get a toy inside that Happy Meal, it makes them happy. They went as far as to create a clown because clowns made kids happy until Stephen King wrote a book and screwed that up for everybody. But that makes them happy. When you drive through McDonald's and are able to pick up food and not have to cook, that makes you happy. Or go in and sit down and don't have to cook. If you get it in just a few minutes, that fast, convenient food, that makes us happy. See, McDonald's understands they're in the happiness business. They sell and execute on that business through fast food, through convenience, through customer service, and they make money with real estate. But all of that is done through making people happy. So when you think about that equation, real estate is where they make money, but that's not what they sell. Fun fact, McDonald's owns more real estate than any entity on planet Earth except for the Catholic Church. They own a ton of real estate. That's how wealth is made, both for individuals and for businesses and entities, right? Let's talk about Apple for a second. What business they were in. Whenever they first came out with their PC, their personal computer, was it an Apple II, Apple IIe, whatever those first personal computers were, IBM was not in the personal computing space. They were international business machines. IBM, they were the largest technology provider on planet Earth. So when they decided to create a personal computer, everyone told Apple, you need to watch out. IBM's coming for you. They're going to put you out of business. What did Apple do? Apple took out a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal. They said, welcome, IBM. Seriously, welcome to the most exciting and important marketplace since the computer revolution began 35 years ago. And congratulations on your first personal computer. Putting real computing power in the hands of the individual is already improving the way people work, think, learn, communicate, and spend their leisure hours. Now go to the bottom. Welcome to the task. See, the reason this is an important story is Apple did not see IBM as a competitor. They understood what business they were in. The business that they were in is helping people improve the way they think, work, learn, communicate, and spend their leisure hours. That was the business that they were in. Now, they did that through computers, through a personal computer, and showing people how to do that was an education curve. It required a lot of resources to show people the how and the why. They didn't have deep enough pockets to do that, but IBM did. IBM had enough buying power to show people why they needed a personal computer. Apple wasn't concerned about the inferiority of their product, right? So what we have to do is put these things together and realize that, well, how did that work out for Apple? Well, my question is, when was the last time someone bought an Apple computer versus an IBM computer? It worked out well because they knew what business they were in. Now, some of you are saying, well, what does McDonald's and Apple have to do with the mortgage business? I'm glad you asked. Guys, we're not in the mortgage business. We're not in the real estate business. We're in, like McDonald's, the happiness business, but also the love business. We're in the love and happiness business. When someone buys a home, they do it for a reason. They're either wanting to expand their family and make more room. They want to live in another part of the country. They are taking a new job opportunity or getting out of the city. Maybe they're downsizing because they're empty nesters. Or if you're like my dad, you want to buy a house with some land so you can kick a rock and be like, that's my rock. There's an underlying reason why people buy their homes. Now, Tony Robbins says our two greatest fears in life as humans, our second greatest fear is not being enough, not being good enough, not being smart enough, not having enough money, not being attractive enough. And that plays into our biggest fear, which is not being loved. Now, not just romantically loved, but liked, loved, included, being a part of something. People want to buy homes to be part of tribe home ownership, to be able to create financial security or wealth. Or sometimes it's because they want to paint the walls any color they want, because you can't do that in rental properties, or maybe you can of 50 Shades of Taupe, right? So in these situations, we have to start having better conversations with our buyers. When they call us, we can't just say, hey, here's the loan product and answer down payment questions and qualifying questions. We need to pause and say, hey, listen, we're going to get all your questions answered, but I'm excited that you're in this home buying journey. What's significant about this home purchase for you? How important would it be for you to become a first-time home buyer? We need to be asking these questions and dig a little deeper. I'll give you just a quick example of this. I had a lady here in Texas when I was originating a few years ago. I had stopped originating as a senior sales leader, and in 2022 decided I didn't want to just be a talking head in the industry. I wanted to originate. I wanted to show that the principles we were coaching and teaching, both in the company I worked for and outside of that, were working, were relevant, were applicable. And I originated for about a year. And one of those conversations, a lady called me about T-Shack. You guys may be familiar. It's one of the Texas bond down payment assistance programs. And she was asking questions like, hey, I just want to pause this for a second. How important would it be for you to become a first-time home buyer? She goes, oh, it'd be massively important. I want to own property. I said, that's exciting. Owning property is part of the American dream. How significant, how impactful, how important would it be for you to own property? And she said, very important. She was a middle-aged lady, and she said, I have a boyfriend who owns a home. I want to own a home because I think in a couple of years we may get married, and we'd like to buy a house together and then keep these two other properties as rental properties. I said, okay, now we're talking about investment real estate, passive income. Would that dramatically change your life? Would that be important to you to have rental properties, to have passive income? And then I got the real reason she was wanting to buy a home. She said, my grandparents had a really tough life, but they made a go of it and they owned property. But when they passed that down to my aunts and uncles and my parents, that generation squandered it. And my cousins and I feel like it's up to us to change our family tree. I was like, thank you so much for sharing that, because now we can put together the right strategy for you, not for just this initial home purchase, but set you up for a potential home purchase with a future spouse in a couple of years, but also create a system and a strategy for your family, your cousins, to do the same type of thing. Guys, there's underlying reasons why people want to buy a home. And we've got to get out of the fact that we're not just in the mortgage business taking applications and locking interest rates and trying to qualify people. That's an important part of the job. But we're going to have a much higher conversion, have a much happier clientele, much happier partners if we take a minute and really understand what is it they're wanting to accomplish. They want to be part of something. I tell people whenever I coach them, stop calling it an application. The root word of application is apply. We're essentially telling people, hey, go fill out a form so I can see whether you're good enough. And like we said, that's the second biggest fear that people have as humans, is being enough. Are they enough to be part of this community, this homeownership community, being included? That's our other biggest fear. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm saying we need to think about these things on a different level, because that's the business that we're in, is putting people into homes. And if we don't have a good enough conversation around why those people want to buy a home, what it is they're trying to accomplish with their personal lives, with their financial lives, we can't be advisors. It's interesting when I hear a lot of people call themselves a mortgage advisor, but their actions show they're just a sales rep. They're just trying to sell. Being an advisor is about advice. If we were in the medical community and we're trying to diagnose and give advice on people's health or an illness or whatever, we have to ask a ton of questions. We'd have to have a conversation, get to know them, build some trust, build some rapport, understand what they want to accomplish. What are their goals? And then the medical community provides either a diagnosis or advice to help them. If we're truly advisors, if we want to help people, why are we not having more conversations and asking more questions? Because that's really what this is all about. So that's the second thing, is really understanding what business we're in. Now, the third thing uncommon people understand is what people actually pay for. And if you don't hear a lot that I say in this webinar, in this presentation, I want you to hear me with this. People pay for solutions to their problems. That's it. People pay for solutions to their problems. They pay with their time. They pay with their money. they pay with their referrals, they pay with their attention. If you solve a problem for someone, they'll reciprocate that. Now, again, it goes back to understanding what business we're in to even figure out what the problems are, to what the challenges. And sometimes they don't know what problems they're trying to solve for. They may not know that there's a solution. So if you're not doing enough business, or if you're not getting enough leads, if you own or run a company and your revenue's not enough, if you're putting content on social media and you're not getting enough engagement, whatever metric it is that you feel like you're not getting enough of it, it's for one of three reasons. The first reason is you're simply not solving enough problems for people. That's straightforward. We solve more problems, that metric increases, whatever that is. Now, the second reason may be that we're not clear about what problem we solve. Now, either we're not clear about what the problem is that we solve for, what we're best at, or we're not doing a great job articulating that to our audience, to the target market, to the people that we're trying to help. So we've got to be very clear on what that is. Are we helping create financial security? Are we helping people become first-time home buyers? Are we helping people create wealth or retirement through investment properties? Right? That's one of the biggest challenges people have. When we talk about solving problems, what's the biggest problem most people have? Money. We're in one of the most unique positions to help people with their financial lives. Financial advisors just see assets. Accountants just see income. We see credit, debt, income, assets, the whole picture. We're uniquely positioned to help solve that problem for people. Now, the third reason is people may not believe that you can solve their problem. And a lot of times that's because we're not showcasing that we solve these types of problems every day. Telling stories about clients that we've helped, telling stories about things that we do. Now, this doesn't mean, hey, I have this incredible loan program, come and talk to me. That's listing off features. So many times in the mortgage and real estate industry, we have people that want to list off features, but they fail to show benefit. No one cares about features. They care about how that benefits them. And I don't care if you're talking to a realtor, referral partner, or a client. We don't need to be talking about these specifics. We need to be telling stories about how we solve someone's problem so that they see the benefit of the things that we do. We can't just say, hey, we communicate really well. We've got really great pricing and fees. We have these awesome platforms. Or if you're a realtor, here's the house, here's the kitchen and the driveway and the yard. Nobody cares. But what they do care about is understanding, hey, with this loan program, I'm able to lower my monthly payment for the first 2 years. Maybe we're talking about a 2-1 buy down. Hey, how would you like to have a lower payment for the first 2 years? So as you get settled and have those initial expenses for a home or increase positions at your job and make more money, how would you like to have a temporary payment that's lower those first couple of years? If you're talking to a referral partner, hey, instead of just having a pre-approval letter, how would you like to have an offer that's same as cash, that doesn't have a loan contingency? What are we talking about? We're just talking about having the file underwritten up front, up to a certain sales price. They underwrite income and assets. Now there's no loan contingency. It's just property information. Instead of listing off the features, let's talk about benefit. And then all of a sudden we're showing people how we can solve their problems. So we've got to realize, what do people pay for? Now, we don't have to boil the ocean coming up with these complex problems to solve for people. Sometimes it can be as simple as getting someone out of the environment they're in. Think about if you're in the DMV, there's a great example, or a doctor's office waiting room, or some of those places where you're just sitting and waiting like, oh my gosh, I just need this to happen already. So many people, when they're in that environment, we pick up our phone and we start scrolling social media. No one in that environment is picking up their phone, opening up Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok and being like, man, I hope a loan officer gives me the definition of amortization. Man, I hope somebody shows me what happens to my escrow account when I refinance. Guys, that's great information for people, but that needs to be able to be referenced on your website or YouTube videos that they can search. That's not great social media content. If you put out a picture or a video, or you shared someone else's post that was informative or entertaining or interesting to that person, and you solve the problem of, I don't like the environment that I'm in, so I'm going to go try to be entertained for a second, If you posted something that entertained them, they will pay you with their time, with their attention, with their engagement. Maybe they like your post or comment on it. And now all of a sudden you have someone that you can like and comment on their post, potentially follow or connect with one another, start building rapport, and that may turn into business. Guys, we're overcomplicating this. At the end of the day, we need to be adding value and providing advice. But the only way that you can do that is to have more conversations with people as opposed to just trying to advertise what we do and list off features. Uncommon people understand the difference. Now, I want to talk about marketing for a second. I mentioned advertising a second ago. Advertising can be a way of marketing, but I want you to put everything out of your mind that you've thought about marketing before and read this first line. Marketing is simply 100% about getting people's attention. And that's a hard stop. See, sales comes later. When you've developed a relationship, when you've developed rapport, when you give a call to action, that is now sales. With marketing, you're just trying to get someone's attention. Can you post something on social media? Can you be out and about in your community, have a conversation with someone? Do you send out a text or an email? How can you get people's attention? How can they become aware of who you are? And again, notice I didn't say what you do. Marketing is about getting people's attention. Now, effective marketing takes that attention and balances it with trust. Effective marketing is balancing trust and attention. And the reason it's a balance is because I could light myself on fire and put it on TikTok and create a whole lot of attention. But that doesn't mean I've built any trust that people would want to do business with me. But at the same time, we have a lot of really trusted professionals in this industry that are capped at the amount of business that they can do and the people that they can help because not enough people know about them. So you have to balance that. Now, when we talk about trust, because there's lots of ways to get people's attention. Well, how do we create trust? Well, I found there's two very easy ways that you can build some immediate trust with someone. The first is show things in common with them. We're naturally drawn to and have an element of trust with people that are like us, that we have things in common with. I like to share this story. When I graduated high school, my graduation present from my parents was a trip to Europe. It wasn't a huge sticker price. It was one of those educational tours, the group 30, 40 people. It was about half adults, half teenagers. And I remember getting the itinerary. It was 6 different countries over 17 days. It was a trip of a lifetime. On July 4th that summer, we were going to be in Venice, Italy. And I was so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, fireworks over Venice. That'll be cool. I was a smart kid, but for those that didn't get that joke, Italy doesn't celebrate American Independence Day. There weren't going to be any fireworks. But I remember being in Venice that day, and we ran into another group of Americans. And we're like, oh, high five, I'm from the US. And our group stayed together that whole day. And if you think of those touristy places in Europe are very heavy with pickpockets. So your cash and your ID and passport, you got to really watch them and take care of them. So when this other group was, going to the bathroom or at shops, we were watching their stuff. And same thing, when we were going to shops and bathroom, they were watching ours. And I thought about that years later. They were perfect strangers. I'm not at a sporting event, be like, hey, I got to run to the bathroom. Will you hold my wallet? We don't do that. But because they were like us, because we had something in common, we had instant trust with them. I live in Texas. I don't walk around Texas high-fiving people, hey, I'm from Texas too, unless maybe I'm in Florida and I see someone who's from Texas or find out someone's from Texas. But again, I don't do that in Texas unless me living in the Dallas area, I'm in Houston. Hey, high five. Guys, that's what we all know instinctively. If someone likes the same sports team, if someone has a similar hobby, if they have the same type of pet, all of these things go together and we immediately have trust with people that we have things in common with, which is why we need to be showcasing more about who we are. Now, the other easy way to create trust is offer something of value without asking anything in return. That's the key part. If you're sharing content on social media, if you're doing a home buyer webinar, if you're putting out cool resources, if you're having conversations with someone, Sometimes adding value in a one-on-one conversation is simply asking questions and letting them share and be heard. But as soon as we say, hey, well, call me for your home loan needs, or if you have a really great video on social at the end, you're like, call me if you want to buy or refinance a home. As soon as you have a call to action, it's now no longer marketing. You've not created any trust and you're selling. So many of us think we're marketing and we're just selling. No one wants to be sold to. We want to get their attention, develop a relationship rapport, ask questions, get to know them. And when they identify a problem solved, we're able to say, hey, what if there was a solution to that? Would that be something interesting to you? Guys, that's now selling, but you're allowing them to buy something that they now know that they want and trying to sell them something they may not understand. Only about 10% of what we talk about in the mortgage business do people actually understand. And we've got to remember that. It's just like if you were having let's say someone invited you over for dinner and they're like, hey, how was dinner? Oh, dinner was delicious, but as soon as you say comma, but, you've negated everything you said before that. That's what's happening in marketing. You're getting someone's attention and then you ask for something. So the two ways to create trust when you have their attention is offer value without asking for anything back. They know why you're there. They can go to your profile and see that you're in the business. What you need to be after is relationships. And the other way to create trust is showcase things in common. People do not care what you do. They care who you are. And we're going to talk about that a little more in a minute. But I do want to, now that we've kind of established this marketing and sales platform, you got to understand the marketing formula. Uncommon people understand this marketing formula. Now, why do I call it the marketing formula? I don't know. I didn't know what else to call it, but it's 3 steps, very easy steps. The first one, who's your audience? Who is your target market? Who are the people that you're trying to reach? Now, you may have a couple of different lists of certain types of potential clients and consumers, and maybe a certain type of realtor or other referral partners. But you need to get really clear. If you're, let's say it was first-time home buyers, okay, what age range? Where do they live? What do they do? Because again, if we're talking millennials, if you're an older millennial in your late 30s, early 40s, you may be married, have kids, a little further on your career than say a younger millennial who's late 20s, early 30s. Maybe they haven't done those things yet. They're at different places in life. So we've got to get very clear on who that audience is, geographically, demographically, socioeconomically. We really want to pin down who is your target market, who you're going after. Same way with realtors. What type of homes do they sell? Do they sell? Do they list? Do they do both? Do they have a team? Where are they located? What is their focus in clients? Get really, really specific. Second step, solve their problem. Another way to say it is, what value do you provide or can you provide that particular audience, that group of people? That's why we get specific. So we know what type of problems they can solve. If they're early in their career, maybe don't have a family, but they want to start investing in real estate or buy their first home, you could put out a piece of content or a resource of here's the 3 best budgeting apps for 2025 so that you can start saving for a down payment. That's a problem you can solve. That's value you can provide. Or provide entertaining content so someone finds out who you are and realizes that, oh, they're in the mortgage business. Interesting. Guys, it's about awareness. It's about attention. So first, who's your audience? Second, what problem do you solve? What value do you provide? And third, what's the most effective place or medium to provide that value to that audience? And again, if we're using the first-time homebuyer example of older millennials, they're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, where younger millennials are on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. We've got to be thinking about where can we find our audience. Now, it could be online. It could be locally in person. Where are places in your community where you have an opportunity to meet and have conversations with these types of people? Again, whether it's realtors or referral partners or clients, where can I find them? Where can I have conversations and build relationship? I don't care what type of marketing you're doing, whether it's paid ads and advertising, whether it's organic relationships and referrals, if it's some type of content online or social media. If you first ask, who am I trying to reach? What value can I provide? And where's the best place to provide it? You're going to have a much more effective marketing plan. Now let's talk about content for just a second. I'm going to go over this a little bit quicker for time's sake. We all think now content, social media, whatever, it's all got to be video. Video is the most engaged type of content. I think the stat is 85% of the world's internet traffic is streaming video of some type, whether it's the streaming platforms we watch TV or on these social media platforms where we're watching videos. But there are other types of content as well. The first, microphone, audio. Obviously, I'm a little bit of a podcast evangelist. Podcasts have a higher trust audience. And what that means is they listen longer. Not as many people may listen, but you have them for more time. Edison Research says that 93% of people listen to most or all of a podcast episode that they start. There are 4 categories: just the beginning, less than half, more than half, or all. And 93% of people listen to more than half or all, meaning if the average podcast episode is 40 minutes, you've got a 93% chance of getting them for at least 20 minutes. That's a higher trust audience. They're more invested in you and what you're talking about. So audio may be a great medium for you. Again, middle, we talked about video, but it can also be pictures. It doesn't just have to be video content. I highly recommend it. You need to be out there so that people can see your face. They can hear you talk, see your cadence. A lot of times a picture just doesn't do it justice. And again, here's a little bit of a side note. On your profile, if the only picture of you is your profile picture and it's, dated, if your hair is a different color, if you look completely different, we might want to update that. That's something we might want to do. Now, I'm not trying to step on any toes. I'm saying it with a smile. Anytime I say something that might hurt a little bit, I'll just smile so that it's all good between us. And then the last is written. You don't necessarily have to start a blog or write a book, but almost all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, even YouTube, allow 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 characters. That's several hundred words. That's almost kind of a mini blog. So you could provide content with just written posts. You could post a picture or a graphic or a graph and then write. Whenever you're on social media and you see a couple of lines and there's that more where you want to see the rest of the post, when someone clicks that on your post, that algorithm gives you as many points and as much credence and credibility as if someone listens to the first 3 to 5 seconds of your video. And most of the time, people are scrolling quickly. So if you are doing video, don't open your camera and be like, hey, this is Phil Treadwell with M1 Academy. They've already scrolled. They've already scrolled by. Don't introduce yourself. Start talking. Have a really strong hook. It's one of the things we coach in M1 Academy is if you're doing video content, if that's something you choose to do, start off with value. Start off with a strong hook. Hey, here's 3 ways to get started investing in real estate. Here's 2 things you didn't know about budgeting in 2025. Here's myths. Just start with the content. The reason you don't want to introduce yourself is when you post, your name's right there, first of all. So people already know who you are. And if they don't know who you are, they don't care who you are until you give them value. Right? So whenever people watch a video, the algorithm shows it to more people. When you do written posts and they click more, they're going to show that to more people as well. Now, I talk about social media and content because years ago I had to go to Board of Realtors meetings and Chamber of Commerce meetings and coffee shops or real estate offices trying to get in front of people. Well, now we have this infinite number of people on multiple platforms that we can potentially get in front of, get to know, learn about them. We've got to use that as a prospecting tool like we haven't before. This is something I don't say a lot publicly, but I don't love social media. I don't inherently wake up in the morning like, I'm so excited to be on social media. But over the last 6 or 7 years, I've put out a lot more content than most because I took the same principle of walking around to real estate offices 8, 9, 10 hours a day, trying to start conversations with people. And I apply that to the more relevant platform at the time. A third of real estate companies don't even have physical offices anymore. So we've got to be out there. So content is important. The other reason it's important is social proof. Guys, 10 years ago, I'll just pick on Steven for a second. If I said 10 years ago to someone, you need to use Steven for your mortgage. Steven's a rock star. He's going to create a strategy. If he says he can get it done, he will. He's going to communicate with you, answer your questions. You need to use Steven for your mortgage. 10 years ago, they just went and used Steven. That was it. End of conversation. What do they do now? If I say the same thing, they go look Steven up. They try to find a website. They try to find social media platforms. Maybe they look at reviews. Guys, that's what people do now. You're like, well, I don't know if they do that or not. Okay, when was the last time someone referred you a movie, a restaurant, a product, a service provider? What did you do? You Googled it. You looked it up online. And most of the time, what's the first 4 or 5 results whenever you Google someone? It's social media. It's now social proof. And if there's nothing there, they're like, Phil, what the heck? I thought you said Steven was a rock star. I can't even find anything. Is he even out there? Guys, it's social proof because that's what's relevant today. That's why I share the story about walking around. I didn't build my business. I didn't know. This is a funny story I thought about earlier. I didn't know for the first 2 years of my mortgage career that I could even do a refinance. I literally didn't. My boss and my mentor at the time showed me how to go build relationships with realtors and do purchase business. And I had someone randomly call me after about 1.5 to 2 years and said, hey, I want to refinance my house. Can you do that? I'm like, I don't know. Let me ask. I was tunnel vision on what was relevant right then. And that's how successful people were getting business. How are successful people getting business now? Doesn't mean they're not talking to realtors or working their database, but the way they get those people's attention is very different. People don't really answer phone calls anymore. I know people in this industry, in real estate and mortgage, that their voicemail says, hey, you've reached so-and-so. If you know me, you're probably not trying to leave a message, but if you don't know me, don't leave a message. I won't listen to it. Please send me a text message and I'll respond immediately. That's what people are doing. We've got to think about being relevant. I just want to throw this out there. I've not been as good at building a YouTube presence as I probably have on other social media platforms, but I wanted to share this because it's a recent stat. YouTube is now the #1 streaming platform in the United States on connected TVs. In the US, over the last 12 months, they're the #1 streaming platform. That beats Netflix, Prime, Hulu, the other 15 streaming platforms we have on connected TVs in the US. They're the #1 streaming platform, mainly because it's free. And when we need to know how to do something or we have a question about something, what do? We go to YouTube or we Google it, and Google owns YouTube. So when you ask Google, it's going to show you YouTube videos as well. So that's a sleeper. Don't let that sleep on you. I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly because we talked about quite a bit, but uncommon people understand how to digitize reputation. And that's really what we've been talking about with marketing and with content. A digital reputation is just who you are and putting it online. I used to call it a personal brand, but I don't coach as much on personal brand in those terms because when people hear personal brand, they're like, well, I don't want to be a celebrity, or I don't want to be me, or they think brand, right? They want to create a shtick or a logo. No, a personal brand is simply taking who you are and sharing it online so that people can see for all the reasons we've talked about, so they can find things in common, so that you can add value, so that there's social proof. Now, if you look real quick, here's another chart for you. This is where buyers found their lender. And this chart's about a year old, but it's still very relevant. It's from Stratmore. And as you can see, 63% of people found their lender on a home that they were buying from either a referral from a friend or family member or a referral from a real estate agent. So 2/3 almost of people found their lender from a referral. Let's just say it out like it is. This business has been done, is being done, and will always be done and built based on relationships and referrals. Now, the guy that first was on stage sharing this chart said, when I saw that they only found 3% of people found their lender on social media, I stopped doing near as much on social media, focused on online search and some of these other places. And he's completely wrong. And I'll tell you why. Whenever a friend or family member or real estate agent refers you, what are those people going to do? Like we just said, they're going to social media. They're going to look you up online. That social proof hits us again. I'm not saying you need to stop your whole life, build a recording studio and start putting content online, but you do have to understand the Amazonification of the world, as I call it. We're used to getting things quickly. We're used to choosing businesses and service providers quickly. Google contributed to it. We've all contributed to it. In the Dallas area, whenever I go on Amazon, I click Prime, and if I can't get whatever product I'm looking for that same day or next day, I look at a different product. That's what we've been conditioned. That's how the world thinks now. So we've got to realize what is a relevant way that I can still build a business based upon relationships, because that's how it's done still, but also increase that conversion. I don't care if you've got 5,000, 10,000 people in your past customer database and hundreds of people that refer you business. You can increase your conversion with this one concept right here. There's a group in Nashville, Tennessee called the Brand Builders Group, Rory and AJ Vaden. I've had the opportunity to be on their podcast. They've been on mine, and they've built brands for people like Ed Milet, Lewis Howes, the School of Greatness podcast, the author John Gordon. And they did a commissioned study of with a bunch of PhDs around marketing and branding and really understanding consumer sentiment and behavior on these things. And what they found was that 2/3 of people that they surveyed, it was between 60 and 65%, depending on the profession, wanted to see more of a personal brand from their doctor, their lawyer, their financial advisor, and their employer. It was like 60, 61% of people wanted to see more of a brand, personal brand from their employer. 65% of the people want to see more from a doctor or an attorney or a financial advisor. Why is this significant? Well, number one, the same clients that those people have are the same clients that you have. And secondly, when you go talk to a doctor or a lawyer or a financial advisor or your boss, there's a level of anxiety when you have to deal with those people. There's a level of stress because you're exposed. What happens when they're talking to us? When we're asking about income and assets and credit and debts and all these different types of things, there's a level of anxiety, those fears we talked about earlier. So whenever you have trust and more of a personal brand and they know more about you, there's a comfort level there. So the higher the requirement of trust, the more important it is to have a personal brand, to digitize that reputation. I don't care if you own companies, run companies. I've owned a mortgage company. I've run a lot of mortgage companies. People don't care who's on the business card. They don't care that company logo. They care about that person that they're working with. Doesn't mean that company brand isn't important, because there's a lot of great companies doing a lot of great things. I'm sure you guys are part of a lot of them. But at the end of the day, when you talk to a client, the company on their business card doesn't matter as much as that person that they're working with. And that's what we're talking about here. All right, this is the last one. I know we're coming up on time here, so we'll go through this a little bit quicker, but this is one of my favorite. Uncommon people embrace failure. See, John Maxwell says the opposite of success isn't failure. The opposite of success is excuses. Excuses that we make. I said earlier, my mom was a teacher, and I kind of grew up around teachers and academia. I think teachers are awesome. I have a couple of teachers that work on my team here at M1 Academy. But teachers try to help kids. Academia, I have a problem with. The institution of academia has taught us for years the successes on one side, failures on the other, and you have to decide which way you want to go. I was a pretty good student, but I couldn't have failed every test, failed every quiz. Even if I learned all the things I got wrong, learned it, I was still a quote unquote failure. I would have failed the class. They taught us that they're opposites. And like we said, they're not. In the real world, success and failure are stacked. We go through failure to get to success. We've heard it on podcasts. We've seen people on stage talk about they failed over and over and over, but they were learning along the way, and that's how they were able to succeed. See, there's never a situation where doing nothing is better than doing something, even if you fail. Because if you do nothing, you get nothing. If you do something, you either get a win and get a result, or you take a loss, you fail. But that L in loss is L for learn. We're going to take an L. I didn't get a result, but I'm learning something. So all of a sudden it's now a win again. That's why it's never better to do nothing, because you don't get anything out of it and you don't have an opportunity to learn. Now, I share with people, baseball is a great metaphor for this. In professional baseball, at any level, from minor leagues through major leagues, If you have a 200 batting average, you're probably AA, AAA. If you have a 300 batting average, you're in the major leagues, probably an all-star. And if you have a 400 batting average, you're Ted Williams. You're the greatest of all time. Now, for those that don't speak baseball, a 300 batting average means that 3 out of 10 times that you went to bat at the plate, 3 out of 10 times you got a hit and you got on base, or you hit a home run. But 7 out of 10 times you struck out, you flied out, you grounded out, whatever. You went back to the dugout having failed 70% of the time. Now, what did I say? If you have a 300 batting average, you're in the major leagues, probably an all-star, but they're failing 70% of the time. Phil, you can fail 70% of the time and be one of the best at what you do professionally? Yes, that's the point. Elite professionals understand you fail all the time, but when they're in the dugout, they're studying the pitcher. They're looking at iPads and computers, trying to figure out what can I do better next time. We have this aversion from academia that we can't fail. We always have to succeed. No, we absolutely 100% can fail and still succeed, because that's how uncommon people, elite people do it. They use those opportunities to learn. And the way that we do that is through daily habits. If anybody's read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about stacking habits. In our coaching program, we talk about stacking wins through those habits. See, our mind only distinguishes between wins and losses, not how big they are. Just wins and losses, successes and failures. So we help people create daily habits, both for their personal life and professional life. Maybe it's a morning routine. They get up, go to the gym, eat a little better, take some quiet time, read a book, listen to a podcast, post some content. Because see, what happens is you start stacking those wins. That now creates momentum. And then if you go into that first phone call, let's say you have a phone call and you absolutely bombed it. Well, you bombed that phone call, but you ate a protein bar instead of a cupcake. That was a win. Or you made your bed. That was a win. Those cancel each other out. You still have momentum. See, momentum creates more motivation. Even if we're failing, we're canceling these losses, these failures out with these other little wins. And that momentum creates more motivation. If you think about a to-do list, when you check something off, you want to keep checking stuff off. When you walk through the garage on the weekend, you were trying to, arrange a shelf, and next thing I know, 3 hours later, you've cleaned the whole garage. We've all had those situations where one thing leads to another. That momentum creates more motivation. Now, the other thing that creates is confidence. See, confidence is a personality trait. I'm sorry. Confidence is not a personality trait. Confidence is a skill that we learn. Those people that have swagger, that walk around, that we just say are oozing confidence, they weren't born that way. They realized that all those little wins move the needle way more than the losses did. That momentum creates motivation. It creates confidence, because those failures don't matter anymore. You learned something, so it became a win. Or even if you failed and didn't learn anything, because you're stacking these other little wins, our mind doesn't distinguish between a big loss and a small win. It's just a win and loss. They cancel each other out. Let's keep going. Uncommon people can embrace failure. That's why I tell people, go out and do something, take action. And there's people like, well, I don't know. I'm okay failing. Like I don't have a problem with failing. Like I don't like it, but I'm not afraid of failure. My response would be, well, are you okay with people seeing you fail? See, in pro baseball, if you strike out, you walk back to the dugout in front of 50,000 people that are calling you every name other than the one your mom gave you. And you have to go back out there in 15 or 20 minutes and do it again. Are we willing to do that? Before we get on a phone call, are we practicing our scripts? Are we having a conversation? Are we researching the person? One of my very first podcast episodes, Barry Habib said a professional boxer trains 5,000 minutes for every 1 minute in the ring. Are we putting in the reps to prepare ourselves to be an elite professional? And then even if we fail, are we learning and using that to move our business forward? These things that we're afraid of trying, we've got to go take action. We've got to go do them. Why? was in the wrong place. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is nothing more than a decision that you're willing to do what it takes. I quoted Tony Robbins earlier. He also says that we've not truly made a decision unless it creates a new action. So we've got to make the decision, hey, this is what I'm going to do in my business, and I'm going to take action to make it happen. This is going to be what my 2025 year is going to look like. See, we all have, crazy Uncle Bob or crazy Aunt Susan, and when they've made their mind up, there's no change in their mind. But we forget we can do the same thing. We can make a decision, make our mind up, and nothing is going to stand in our way to do it. That's what you have to do. That's the gap between being average and being uncommon, is making the decision, here's the people that I want to help. Here's the problem that I solve. Here's how I'm going to go get people's attention by sharing more about who I am, not just what I do. I'm not going to be afraid to pick up my phone and record a video. See, what we think is there's trolls out there. We think if we take out our phone and record a video, hey, this guy on Phil said I need to record a video. I don't really know what to say, but I'm recording a video and here we go, and post it, that the trolls are going to come out of the woodwork. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. What really happens is people rally behind you and say, hey, great job. Keep at it. Hey, keep posting. Love to see your face. I had a client, last story here. I had a client that had never done a video, posted a ton of social media content, wasn't really getting a lot of engagement, walked out his front door, recorded a 30-second video, got 100 comments and like 300 likes, and he didn't have that many friends on Facebook. It's different, guys. You've got to understand that uncommon people make these subtle distinctions. I'm not trying to change your whole business. We're trying to make it a little bit different than what you've done in the past. I want to throw this up here. I'm not hard selling my coaching. We're doing this really cool end of year special. We do bi-weekly group coaching. There's a ton of stuff on here. If you want to scan the QR code, instead of $300 a month, we're doing it for $100 a month. No minimum number of months. Have a ton of resources in there. I just wanted to throw that up there in case anyone was interested. All these slides have had my Instagram handle at the bottom of them. Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, shoot me an email, go to my website, whatever makes most sense for you. So I definitely wanted to do that. Stephen, I'll hand it back over to you. I will open it up. I know we're coming up on time here, but I've got a few more minutes if anybody wanted to ask any questions.
Thank you, Phil, for such an insightful and engaging presentation. Your knowledge and experience and expertise are truly inspiring. We do have a few minutes, as Phil mentioned. If you have any questions, send those through the Q&A panel or the chat panel.
Or unmute and ask the question.
Yes, that sounds good.
We cover a lot of topics. It may not be something we cover, but if someone has a question about something, we're more than happy to try to help any way we can.
Okay, well, no questions at this time. Thank you, everyone who joined us today. We hope you found value in the session and gained practical takeaways to apply in your own work. The Texas Mortgage Bankers Association is committed to bringing you valuable content through webinars like this one. Please be sure to visit texasmba.org to explore upcoming webinars and access recordings of past sessions. Thank you again, everyone. We wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a joyful New Year. That concludes our webinar. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, guys.